If starting were easy, consistency wouldn't be a problem. Most people don't struggle because they can't continue. They struggle because they can't begin. They know what to do. They understand why it matters. They even want the result. And yet starting feels unusually heavy, so heavy, in fact, that people assume it means something, that they're unmotivated, undisciplined, or simply not the kind of person who follows through. But that interpretation is wrong. Starting feels hard for a reason, and it has nothing to do with laziness. The first step carries a unique kind of pressure. Before you start, everything exists in your imagination. The effort, the uncertainty, the possible failure. Your mind hasn't received any feedback yet, so it fills the gap with prediction. And prediction tends to exaggerate difficulty. This is why starting feels heavier than continuing. Not because the work is harder at the beginning, but because uncertainty is at its highest. Once you begin, something subtle shifts. The task stops being hypothetical. It becomes specific. Your brain no longer has to guess. It can respond, and when the brain receives real information, it relaxes. This is why continuing often feels easier than starting. Even when the work itself hasn't changed, movement reduces uncertainty. Stillness amplifies it. Resistance isn't a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're standing at the edge between imagination and reality. Before you start, resistance is emotional. After you start, resistance becomes practical, and practical resistance is easier to work with. You can adjust effort, change pace, take breaks, but emotional resistance has no shape. It just feels heavy. Most people interpret the difficulty of starting as a personal flaw. They wait for the resistance to disappear. But resistance doesn't disappear before action. It softens after action. Waiting for starting to feel easy is what keeps people stuck. Not because they lack willpower, but because they misunderstand the process. The goal isn't to overcome resistance. The goal is to reduce the size of the start. When the first step is small enough, resistance loses its power. Opening the document, putting on the shoes, sitting down. These steps don't feel impressive, but they change the situation. They turn anticipation into participation, and participation is what allows momentum to form. Every time you start, even imperfectly, you teach yourself something important, that you don't need certainty first, that you don't need motivation first, that you can move without clarity. Over time, this builds a quiet kind of confidence. Not confidence in outcomes, confidence in your ability to begin, and that matters more. Starting feels hard because it carries uncertainty. Continuing feels easier because uncertainty fades. Once you understand that, you stop treating resistance as a warning. You see it for what it is, a temporary signal at the edge of motion. You don't need to feel ready to start. You just need to start small enough that beginning becomes possible. That's how progress actually begins.